What's up everybody? Welcome to Shade Tree Mechanic. Today we will be doing a pre-road trip checkup. Bethany, Maverick, and myself are going on a road trip to North Carolina this weekend. It's going to be a 4.5 hour drive for us, and so we want to make sure that our car is running as good as it can and prevent any problems that we may have on the road. So here's a few tips, a few things that you can do to make sure your car is ready for a nice road trip. The first thing that we're going to do is rotate our tires. If you haven't rotated your tires lately, then it's a very good thing to do before you go on a long trip. I have not, and so we're going to go ahead and do that now. So rotating your tires is simply taking the front tire and swapping it with the rear tire. And so you're going to remove each wheel, flip-flop them, and tighten your lugs back up. You want to first break all of your lug nuts while your tire is still on the ground. That way you have traction. Now do the front. Now that you have them all loose, you can take and jack up the whole one side of the car. When doing this, you want to make sure that your jack is right on the chassis and you have a good banking point. Once your tires are off the ground, go ahead and remove both of your wheels. Now that you have both wheels removed and you have them swapped front to back, go ahead and remount them. Once you have the wheel put on, you want to take your lug nuts and just hand tighten them, snug them up a little bit. Once you have them all run down by hand, now you can take your ratchet or your pry bar or lug wrench. You can snug them down pretty good. We'll do the exact same thing on the rear. Okay, so now that you have them run down pretty good, you can take your jack, drop it down just to where the tires barely touch the ground. That'll put enough traction on the tires for you to be able to snug them down the rest of the way. So once it's touching the ground, now you can go ahead and tighten them all the way down. Important thing to remember when you're tightening down your lug nuts, you want to do it in a cross pattern, like such. You want to tighten this one, this one, this one, this one, this one, and keep repeating a little bit at a time until they all feel snug. Now once you get that done, you're going to repeat the exact same thing on the opposite side of the car. Now once you have all of your wheels tightened down, what we have to do is make sure they are all aired up. So on your tires on the side, it'll give you the max PSI pressure that you can put in them. Mine is showing 44 PSI. And so we're going to fill it up to 44 PSI. You're going to put air into it, check it with your gauge a little bit at a time until you reach the max amount. Now if you go over the max amount, don't worry about it. You can let a little bit of air out and make sure you get the proper amount of air in your tire. You go ahead and check it first. And I'm actually showing that I have the proper amount in there. Check it one more time. And we're showing that we're about 44, 45 PSI. So we're good on this one. We're at my rear tire. We'll check it. It's showing good still. And so you're just gonna go around and do that for every tire. You can go around and make sure that each one is properly inflated. Now, the most important tire that you've got to remember that always tends to get forgotten is your spare. And so wherever your spare is located, if it's in the trunk of your car, if it's mounted underneath your truck or your SUV, you need to gain access to it make sure that you check the pressure in your spare tire, because the last thing that you need is to get a flat on a road trip and the spare that's supposed to back you up is flat, and it's no good. So please make sure that you put the proper amount of air pressure also in your spare tire. Now that our tires are all taken care of, we need to check the fluids in our car. So the first thing we'll check is the oil level. You're gonna pull your dipstick out. Want to make sure you wipe it off, okay? Once you got it clean, you're gonna put it back in, all the way in, pull it right back out, and then you need to check your reading. So on your dipstick, you're gonna have these little hashes or some sort of a marking on the metal, and it's gonna show you the fill level. Now mine is showing right there at the top side, so we're good. Also, make sure that you check the sticker that has the mileage or the date of the last time you had your oil changed or the next time that it's due. If it's due, or if it's very close to being due, you need to make sure you get that done before you go on a long trip. Mine has about 3,000 more miles. My trip is not nearly that far, and so I know that I'm okay. Right here we have our power steering fluid. And so on the side of my canister, I've got a little fill level that shows a minimal and a maximum. And so I can just look at that, but you can also take your top off, look down inside, and you can make sure that you can see the fluid is where it needs to be. That's good, and so we're not worried about that. We'll just put the top right back on. Back here you have the same thing for your brake fluid. You have a fill level on the side, but you can also take the top off. Just look inside of there, make sure everything's good. My fluid level is topped off, and so we're good to go. Put the top back on, nice and secure. Now, last thing on the fluids, I have my coolant fill tank right here. So it also has a cold fill and a hot fill. And so we're gonna look down in there. We can see that it needs a little bit. Now, whenever I changed out my thermostat a couple of videos ago, I knew that I had coolant inside of my system. So I'm not worried about putting coolant in here. I'm just going to add a little bit of water just to make sure it's filled up to the level that it needs to be. You guys like my upgraded hood holder? I put a vice clamp on my strut here. It works better than a broomstick. It's just water, so we're not worried about making a little bit of a mess. Just gonna slowly watch it as it comes up. And it looks like we're good to go. So put our top back on that. Perfect. Now, one last thing to remember, I have a sealed transmission, so I'm not checking my transmission fluid. But if you do not have a sealed transmission, you will probably have a red dipstick back behind your oil dipstick, or it will be on the opposite side of the engine. So you want to make sure, if you don't have a sealed transmission, that you check that transmission fluid. And in order to do that, you'll do it the same way you do your oil, but you want to make sure that your engine is running. You want to make sure that you start up your engine and then pull that dipstick out, check your fluid. And the very last thing that you need to remember, and yes, I am changed because when I filmed this yesterday, I cut my head off. So that you can best prevent is your REK kit, R-E-K, Roadside Emergency Kit. That's what I'm calling it, but whatever. So inside of your REK kit, I think the most vital thing to have is a plug kit, because if you run over a screw, a nail, or anything and puncture a tire, as long as it's on the treads while you're traveling, this right here can get you going real quick, of course, as long as you can find some air. But also, don't forget to air up that spare tire. But I have an assortment of screwdrivers in here, an adjustable wrench, a ratchet, socket kit, and then always make sure you have jumper cables. These are very good to remember when you're going on a road trip. That's it for today. Thank you for joining me on Shade Tree Mechanic. Just remember these little tips the next time you get ready to go on a trip, and it could save you a whole lot of trouble or just a lot of waiting for AAA. But anyways, have a blessed day. I'll see you next time. Thanks for joining. I'm late for work.